You're standing in a crowd, and someone throws the first rock. You didn't throw it. You didn't plan it. But somehow, you're already moving with everyone else. 10 minutes later, a window shatters. 20 minutes later, a car is burning, and you feel something strange. Not fear, not shame, almost nothing at all. This isn't a hypothetical. It's exactly what happens to ordinary people caught inside a riot. And the strangest part, there isn't the violence, it's the silence afterward. Because when you ask the people who are there how they feel, most of them don't feel guilty. Why? Let's start with a number. In studies of collective violence, researchers have repeatedly found that individual participants in riots rate their personal sense of responsibility far lower than their actual role in the event would suggest. People who threw objects, who chanted, who blocked streets, later describe themselves as bystanders. Not because they're lying, because something in their brain genuinely rewired how it assigned blame. To understand why, you have to understand what a crowd does to your identity. Psychologist Gustave Le Bon was one of the first to study this over a century ago. He watched crowds during periods of political unrest in France and noticed something unsettling. Individuals who were calm, reasonable, even gentle on their own, became reckless and aggressive the moment they joined a mass of people. Le Bon called this a kind of psychological contagion. Ideas and emotions spread through a crowd almost like a virus, jumping from person to person faster than anyone can consciously evaluate them. You don't decide to feel angry in a riot. The anger arrives before your reasoning does. But contagion alone doesn't explain the missing guilt. For that, you need a second piece of the puzzle: anonymity. When you're one face in a crowd of hundreds, something changes in how your brain tracks your own actions. Psychologists call this deindividuation, and it simply means the loss of your sense of yourself as a distinct, accountable individual. Normally, your behavior is tied to your identity. People know your name. People will remember what you did. That knowledge quietly restrains you all day, every day, without you even noticing it's there. Strip that away, and the restraint goes with it. Philip Zimbardo, the psychologist behind the famous Stanford prison experiment, tested this directly in a separate study. He had women deliver electric shocks to another person under two conditions. In one, they wore their normal clothes and were clearly identifiable. In the other, they wore hoods and oversized coats that hid their faces and names. The hooded group delivered shocks for twice as long as the identifiable group. Nothing else changed, just the visibility of who they were. Now picture a riot, hundreds of bodies moving together. No one making eye contact with you specifically. No one calling your name. Your face blurs into the mass, and your brain, quietly and without asking permission, stops tracking your actions as yours. They become the crowd's actions. You're just a limb of something larger. This is where the third piece locks into place: diffusion of responsibility. If 100 people are throwing rocks, and you throw one rock, how much of the damage is yours? Your instinct says 100th of it. Almost nothing. Multiply that instinct across everyone in the crowd, and you get a room full of people who each feel almost blameless, even as the total harm is enormous. No single person feels like the cause. Everyone feels like a small part of something that was already happening. Social psychologist Leon Festinger described a related mechanism called cognitive dissonance, the discomfort your mind feels when your actions don't match your self-image. A decent person who does something indecent should feel that mismatch sharply. But in a crowd, the mind has an escape hatch. It doesn't have to resolve the dissonance by feeling guilty. It can resolve it by quietly rewriting the story. I didn't really do that. The crowd did. I just went along. So let's reconstruct what happens inside your mind the moment a peaceful gathering tips into a riot. First, contagion. Someone nearby raises their voice, and the emotional temperature of the group rises with them, faster than logic can catch up. Second, anonymity. You realize, consciously or not, that no one here can single you out. Third, diffusion. You see the scale of the group and unconsciously divide your sense of responsibility by its size. And fourth, moral disengagement. a term researcher Albert Bandura used to describe the mental tricks people use to detach their actions from their conscience. You tell yourself, the target deserved it. You tell yourself, you're just one small piece. You tell yourself, everyone else is doing it too, so it can't really be wrong. By the time all four mechanisms are active, you're not the same person who woke up that morning. You're a version of yourself with the moral brakes disconnected. Here's the counterintuitive twist, the part that should genuinely unsettle you. It isn't the violent extremists who cause most of a riot's destruction. It's the ordinary, unremarkable people, the ones who would never call themselves capable of this, who make up the overwhelming bulk of the crowd's damage. The dangerous person in a mob isn't the one who came looking for trouble. It's the one who simply stopped thinking of themselves as an individual and let the crowd think for them. Hannah Arendt, writing about ordinary people who participated in historical atrocities, coined a phrase for this that has outlived her by decades: the banality of evil. Not because evil is boring, but because it so often wears the face of someone completely unremarkable, someone who, alone, in a quiet room, would never have done what they did in a crowd. Now, bring this into your own life. You don't need a burning car or a shattered window to feel this pull. You feel a milder version of it every time you pile on to someone in an online argument, every time you retweet outrage without checking if it's true, every time your group chat turns on someone and you add one more insult because everyone else already has. The internet gives you the exact same conditions as a riot, a crowd, anonymity, or something close to it, and the comforting math of diffusion. I'm just one voice among thousands. What difference does one comment make? That question is the trap. It's the same question that quietly disarmed the guilt of everyone in every riot in history. One rock, one comment, one shove, multiplied by a crowd that no longer sees itself as individuals. It becomes something none of those individuals would have chosen alone. So the next time you feel the pull of a crowd, whether it's on a street or on a screen, ask yourself a different question. Not what is everyone else doing, but what would I do right now if my name were attached to this? Because it always is. You just stop noticing. You're standing in a crowd and someone throws the first rock. This time, you notice your hand didn't move, and you realize that noticing was the only thing that ever kept it still.